Okay, today we will be starting our next unit. This unit will be on finding slope and graphing both equations and inequalities. Today we'll start by looking at slope. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to find slope given the graph of a line, recognize when a line has positive, negative, zero, or undefined slope, and how we graph horizontal and vertical lines. With that being said, let's look at a couple of things that we need to know from last year. Remember that our x-axis is our horizontal axis. Our y-axis is our vertical axis. And then we need to remember how to plot points. So if we have the point 3, negative 2, that means that the x value is 3 and the y value is negative 2. So on our graph, we're going to count 1, 2, 3 to the right, 1, 2 down, and that would be 3 over and then negative 2. We could also have the point negative 5, 6. Remember, the x value is always first, the y value comes second. So when we go to graph it, we go to the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And there's the point, negative 5, 6. So this is stuff you should have done in previous years. And it's very important that we understand where the x-axis is, where the y-axis is, and then how we plot our points and how these coordinate points, these coordinate pairs are set up. Each pair is x, y. What is slope? So these are some notes you need to make sure that you write down in your notebook or wherever you're taking your notes for today. First thing that slope is slope tells us how steep the line is. It's like a hill or a ski slope. The bigger that the slope is, the steeper that the line is. Slope tells us whether the line goes up or down. Now look at this here in a second. We'll look at an example. But you always read a graph from left to right, just like you read a book. So the slope is positive. The line's going to go up, like you're going uphill. The slope is negative. The line would be going down, like you're going downhill. Next, slope is rise over run. Rise is your change in y. Run is your change in x. So slope is rise over run. And lastly, slope can be positive, negative, 0, or it can be undefined. And we will look at each of those examples here in a second. We're going to move on and look at some examples. If you have not copied this down, go ahead and pause the video. Sorry about that. So like I was saying, if you have not copied this down, go ahead and pause the video, copy it all down, and when you're ready to move on, go ahead and hit press play. All right, let's look at a positive slope. This line you see here in the graph has a positive slope. A positive slope moves uphill. Remember, you always read the graph from left to right, like we read a book. So as you read from left to right, the graph is going up. So that means that it is positive. Positive slope moves uphill. Remember that slope is rise over run. Rise is the change in y values. Run is the change in x values. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our graph. I've given you 2 points here, so we're going to start at this bottom point, and we're going to draw a right triangle. So we need to go over and then up to our point there. So if we look at our triangle, it's 3 units left and right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units up. So our rise, our y values would be 6. The change in x values would be 3. And like with any other fraction, we want to reduce this. So 6 over 3 reduces to 2 over 1, or you can just write it as 2. So there's our positive slope. We're going to look at our 2 points. We're going to draw a right triangle. Look at our run, our change in x values, and then look at our rise, our change in y values. Last thing, we're going to make sure, because we've got a positive slope, that our value is positive, and it is. Let's look at a second example. This is a negative slope. A negative slope moves downhill. Once again, we're reading the graph from left to right. So you start here, start to the left side, move to the right, we're moving downhill. So because it's moving downhill, this slope needs to be negative, but it's still rise over run. So let's go ahead and draw our triangle. Okay. It doesn't really matter how you draw it, whether it's below the graph like I've drawn it here, or you could draw it above the graph if you wanted to, like so. Either way, if you look at your change in x values, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's the same up here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if you look at your rise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The same here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So either way that you draw your triangle, you've got a rise of 8 and a run of 6. Remember, it's always rise over run. So if we go back over here, our rise was 8, our run was 6, which we're going to reduce. Divide them both, the top and the bottom, by 2 to get 4 over 3. And we've got to make sure we go back and look at what kind of slope do we have. We have a negative slope, so we need to make our slope negative. So in this case, it's negative 4/3. So those are the 2 most common types of slope you're going to have, your positive slope and your negative slope. Always draw your triangle, count your rise over your run, write your fraction, and then make sure it has the correct sign. Now let's look at our unique types of slope. Here's a zero slope. A line with zero slope is a horizontal line. And the reason why it has zero slope, if you were to look at these 2 points, it has a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But it doesn't go up or down at all. It has a rise of 0. So when we go to write our slope, rise over run, our rise is 0, our run is 10. 0 divided by anything is just 0. Now, the additional point that we need to make about this line is what the equation is. So if you look at these points that I've given you, this first point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 6 in the x direction, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the y direction, so it's negative 6, comma 6. The second point is 4, comma 6. And if we pick another point in the middle, let's pick this one right here, that point would be negative 1, comma 6. So if you notice, all of our y values are the same. Okay? So the equation for this line would be y equals to 6. Whenever you have a line with zero slope, or a horizontal line, the equation is always y equals whatever value is found on that line. So in this case, we found a y value of 6 at every point. So the equation was y equals 6. All right, our last scenario. This is an undefined slope. An undefined slope is a vertical line. And the reason that the slope is undefined is that if we were to look at this graph, these 2 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the rise is 9. But the run is 0. This graph does not move left or right at all. So when we go to write our slope, rise over run is 9 divided by 0. Well, we can't divide a number by 0. So when that happens, we have an undefined slope. Now, once again, this line has a unique equation. So let's look at these points that I've given you here. This first point is negative 3 comma 7. This point down here is negative 3 comma negative 2. Let's pick another point. Let's go right here. That point is negative 3 comma 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 3 comma 4. Now what do you notice is the same about all three of these points? Well, their similarity would be the x-coordinate. Each of these x-coordinates is negative 3. So all of our x values are the same. Now with our horizontal line, all of our y values are the same. With our vertical line, all of the x values are the same. So in this case, it's going to be x equals, well in this case, negative 3, because every point had an x value of negative 3. So there's your undefined slope. All right, now it's your turn. Use the previous 4 examples to find the slope of each line. If you find that the slope is 0 or undefined, I want you to go ahead and write the equation of that line. So pause the video now. Here are your solutions. Check each graph. Make sure you have the correct slope. And for number 2, you should also have written the equation. In this case, it would be y equals negative 4, because we have a horizontal line and all of our y values are the same. If you got any of them wrong, go back and look at your notes. Try to find where you made your mistake. If you have any questions from the video, make sure you write them down so you can ask them next class. I will see you guys next time.